Alaikum salam.
Today, inshallah, this Sunday we are starting a new topic, 33 words, inshallah, 33 windows. We will read the introduction part and then we will read, inshallah, 1 or 2 windows out of 33 windows. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. The 33rd word. This treatise is known as both the 33rd word and the 33rd ladder. It consists of 33 windows. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. We shall show them our signs in the furthest horizons and in themselves, so that it will become clear to them that this Quran is indeed the truth. Is it not enough that your sustainer witnesses all things? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. Question. We would welcome a concise explanation of the ways in which humankind and the cosmos, that is, the microcosm and the macrocosm, exhibit the necessary existence and unity of God while demonstrating the attributes and functions of His Lordship, as the comprehensive verses above denote. For the unbelievers have gone too far. They are now saying, for how long will we have to say, and He is powerful over all things, and have to raise our hands in prayer? Answer. The 33 words that have been written here are 33 drops from the ocean of this verse, and from the seas of truth which flow from it. You will find your answer in these words. What we are explaining at present concerns merely a single drop from that ocean of this verse. For example, if some genius has it in his head to build a palace, he first of all designs the foundations in a wise and regular fashion, planning them so that they are appropriate for what is to be constructed upon them. He proceeds by dividing the palace skillfully into different stories and wings. He then arranges the various apartments and staterooms, decorating them all with the tapestries and various other furnishings, and then illuminates them all with electric lights. Then, to show the extent of his ingenuity and talent in that magnificent, beautifully decorated palace, he employs different methods and produces fresh and innovative architectural forms on every story. He then connects every room in the palace to his own dwelling by telephone, and ensures that all rooms have windows from which his abode can be seen. Similarly, and God's is the highest multitude, the peerless Creator has also constructed a palace. Yes, the one who has 1,001 sacred names such as all glorious Maker, all wise Sovereign, and all just Arbiter, has willed the creation of the palace that is the universe, which forms a macrocosm. He laid the foundations of the palace, this vast tree of being, in 6 days, in accordance with the principles of his own wisdom and the laws of his pre-eternal knowledge. He then divided it into layers and branches, both sublime and lowly, while detailing and describing it with the principles of divine decree and determining. Then he organized every group and layer of creatures with the utmost care and craftsmanship. Next, he decorated everything, each realm, each world, in an appropriate way, decking out the heavens with stars and the earth with flowers. He then manifested and made radiant his names within the framework of those universal laws and general principles. And then, in an act of special solicitude, he sent his names, most merciful and all compassionate, to the assistance of those individuals who were pained by the constraint of the universal laws. That is to say, as part of those universal and general principles, he has particular favors, particular expressions of succor, particular expressions of assistance, and particular ways of manifesting, so that everything may seek help from him individually and look to him at all times when in need. Then in every apartment, every level, every world, every realm of existence, in every individual, and in every single created being, he opened up windows through which he shows himself. In other words, he makes known his existence and unity through the telephone that he has placed in every heart. At present, it is beyond the scope of this work to discuss those innumerable windows. Referring them to the all-encompassing knowledge of God, here we shall discuss only 33 of them, a number which aligns nicely with the blessed number of tasbihat, glorifications of God, recited after the prescribed daily prayers. This current treatise, which forms both the 33rd letter and the 33rd word, and consists of flashes from the verses of the Quran, covers subjects which have been unpacked in greater detail in other parts of the Risale-i Nur, and in the rest of the words in particular. I will read from the beginning, inshallah, a few paragraphs. Then we can talk about them. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. We shall show them our signs in the furthest horizons and in themselves, so that it will become clear to them that this Quran is indeed the truth. Is it not enough that your sustainer witnesses all things? Question. We would welcome a concise explanation of the ways in which humankind and cosmos, that is the microcosm and the macrocosm, exhibit the necessary existence and unity of God while demonstrating the attributes and functions of his lordship, as the comprehensive verses above denote. For the unbelievers have gone too far. They are now saying, for how long will we have to say, and he is powerful over all things, and have to raise our hands in prayer? Inshallah, we can talk about the beginning part, inshallah, and the ayah and the question. We can talk about the question too. Colin Hocam, can you, inshallah, elaborate on this?
Who is going to be discussing this with us tonight? Is there someone else, hopefully?
Yeah, Mustafa Hocam from Saudi Arabia.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Mustafa. Maybe Mustafa would like to start us off.
Please, Colin Hocam, after you.
No, please. I usually start, and
Okay.
I'm just getting into it. I think
Okay.
we would benefit from your opening this up for us, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
What it takes my attention, the ayah is Allah is showing a lot of signs to human being, which is supposed to be a conscious when we look at the horizon or when we look at ourselves. I think what I see that there are two dimensions or aspects, we can say, afaqi and anfusi, meaning external and also internal. So one of the maybe wisdom of this section we are reading is the windows, because windows needed to see what is outside, and our eyes is like a windows. And what we are looking outside to the horizon, I mean, the creation of Allah, the mountains, and all of these things in detail explained, it's a sign of Allah. So we are seeing actually the power. But in the question although Allah is showing in the humankind and the cosmos in micro level and the micro level, macro and micro, still the people who are not believing in Allah is making kind of a statement, you know, a kind of how long will you have to say, you know, Allah is all powerful, I mean, powerful over all over things, and have to raise our hands. So kind of they want to find maybe some ways to make kind of a fun of the Muslims at the moment. This is one aspect of I understand this question, meaning like some Muslims, if we are not materially is developing or showing some power, is that showing for non-Muslims that, oh, I mean, you're saying that Allah is powerful, Allah is doing this, that, but how come in your situation? I mean, so kind of this gives them some tool to bring up this question, I think. So if I understand it correctly, this is what comes to my mind for the question part.
So the doubt that they have also, I guess they pose this kind of question, this suspicion against prophets too, like the Musa alayhi salam, for example, he was weak compared to Firaun, and Firaun was questioning him, right? He should have been like sent with angels and with so much power, might, and richness, right?
Yeah.
Here the weakness of Muslims also cause doubt in unbelievers.
Yeah. I mean, one thing come to my mind, one time a non-Muslim friend, he said, what was the date, you know, you're using in Muslims, 1,400 something, like kind of they see us slow motion, laziness, and kind of no power at all, even within us. So we are seen like as kind of a weak side, although the ayah is, you know, claiming the strong side. If we are with Allah, with the strength, with the clear signs, why they are not believing, or kind of these questions are maybe popping up from their minds. So Ustad is trying to explain, you know, how this ocean of the ayah can shed a light to their mind if they are willing to accept it. So I think he's gonna list it a lot of, let's say, the different windows where it shows the Allah's power, you know, his rububiyyah and different aspect as the dalil, you know, as the evidence.
Allah, I see that if Allah wants to misguide someone, right, like there are many causes, as you said, one of them, yani, there are many causes, and we will actually talk about the causes and answers, yani, to those causes of misguidance, inshallah, find solutions, even the misguidance that we have in our hearts, yani, inshallah, to correct our misguidance and get close to Allah. Jazakallah, Mustafa hocam. This is one. Colin hocam, any comments on the question part?
Yeah, it's a question that is at the beginning of the treatise, and I hadn't really paid too much attention to it before. And I think that I'm glad that Mustafa started us off, because he really has, you know, very succinctly, you know, hit the nail on the head. It's the kind of challenge, baseless challenge that we hear quite often when people say, oh, you know, it's the 20th century, it's the 21st century, you're still talking about God, you know, you don't believe in evolution, you don't believe in the Big Bang, you don't believe in this, that, or the other. It's a kind of indignation that we hear from unbelievers who find it quite amusing, in a sense, that we are still talking about a creator who created the world, you know, in 6 days. And I use that guardedly. We know that day is not a 24-hour day, but even so, it's sort of That question here is an embodiment of this sort of unrighteous indignation of the unbelievers that, they think that we're behind the times. They think that we are superstitious, we are, retrogressive, we are backward looking. And this is all to do with, the tension between reason and revelation, and the fact that the enlightenment, the so-called enlightenment, or endarkenment, as I would prefer to call it, has dethroned God and has put human reason on that throne. And basically, they are tired. They are tired because, they cannot understand why we are still saying, that there is only one creator, and that creator continuously creates, and that everything in the universe points to his existence and his unity in existence. And all you have to do to that, which is what believers don't do, is to look at the signs on the horizons and in themselves, because those signs are mutually opposing windows. And by their opposing, I mean they are facing each other. So these are windows which face each other. And what we can view in the windows of the Afaq corresponds to what we can view in the windows of the Anfus, or the windows which look into the inner truths of things and of ourselves in particular. So yeah, I mean, this is an interesting question, but of course it's a baseless question, and we can easily rebut that question, as Ustad does throughout the Risale. The whole of the Risale is a response to this question, actually. And if you bear in mind when the Risale was written, and at the beginning of the Turkish Republic, when Ustad is very famously realized that these currents are these very iniquitous currents of atheistic materialism were knocking at the door of the Muslim world. And of course, with this question, how long will we have to say that God is powerful? In other words, how long are you going to persist in this belief in God? And of course, Risale is an extended response to this question. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, for giving us this, mashallah, powerful treatise. Inshallah, in the answer to, inshallah, I will read that part. For how long will we have to say, and he is powerful over all things, and have to raise our hands in prayer? The answer, the 33 words that have been written here are 33 drops from the ocean of this verse, and from the seas of truth which flow from it. You will find your answer in these words. What we are explaining at present concerns merely a single drop from that ocean. Alhamdulillah, Kolin, I see that drop satisfies us. Like, and that drop, like, it's like I'm drowned in that drop, mashallah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rumi talks about a drop in the ocean, the whole of the ocean in a single drop. And, we know through the mystery or the truth of Ahad and Wahid, Rahman and Rahim, all of the binary names which come together to form our world. We know that, a drop is enough, actually, because, he's only presenting a single drop, but that drop contains the whole universe.
I think he has a saying like that, right? You are not a drop in the ocean. You are a drop that contains the ocean, right? Something like that.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. I can't remember it exactly, but
each human being, actually, and we will talk about in the second window too, Yani. We are not just one drop, like we are not just one human being in the universe. We are a universe in one human being, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Each human being, and from a Hadiyah point of view, inshallah, we can talk about it in the second window. I will continue, inshallah, the explanation parts from the answer. For example, if some genius has it in his head to build a palace, he first of all designs the foundations in a wise and regular fashion, planning them so that they are appropriate for what is to be constructed upon them. He proceeds by dividing the palace skillfully into different stories and wings. He then arranges the various apartments and staterooms, decorating them all with the tapestries and various other furnishings, and then illuminates them all with electric lights. Then, to show the extent of his ingenuity and talent in that magnificent, beautifully decorated palace, he employs different methods and produces fresh and innovative architectural forms on every story. He then connects every room in the palace to his own dwelling by telephone and ensures that all rooms have windows from which his abode can be seen. This is the example part. Before going to the explanation, Kolnajam, should we talk about it first?
You're the boss.
These two paragraphs, Mustafa Hocam. And then
yeah, I mean, what is also quite interesting, like the strategy Ustad is using with this example, because if they are stubborn and don't seeing, let's say, listening to the Prophet or the Allah's message, the common ground between us and them is the universe. Like Ustad is saying that there are three teachers who teaches us the Allah. One is the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the other one is Quran, and the third one is the Book of Universe. So Ustad is right now opening a page in the Book of Universe, saying that, let's say, think about a palace. So in here, the palace referring is this universe, is the world. So with the logic of, let's say, you have an architecture, you have an engineer, what you are doing. So he is digging the actions and also the attributes, and he's slowly pushing them to the point where he wants them, because the analogy is quite good, because they cannot deny if they are not really, really stubborn in this point. Yeah, the example is beautiful, as like you have this magnificent palaces you see around. There is a fashion on it, there is a master plan. So all of these steps, when you consider it in your mind, now let's get to the reality. I think he's gonna talk about right now on that.
Could I just say something here? In all of Ustad's examples, all of the analogies and the metaphors that he uses to analogize the world, they are all, if you think about it, systems. He talks of the universe as a book. Now, a book is a system. It's a system of words and letters and semantics and grammar and intention. He talks about the universe as a training ground, which itself is a system. He talks about the universe as an exhibition center, which again works according to systems. He's talking about systems, and this is not just a pretext for us to bring in our dear brother Harun, but I would like him to say a little bit about the ubiquity or the universality of systems, and as Mustafa was saying, how unbelievers cannot deny that a system needs a system. Is it the word system maker or a designer, or I'm not sure, but I think maybe Harun would be able to tell us, if he will, if he doesn't mind.
Assalamu alaikum. Just, I'm in the position of listening, but since Kalnajam, you're throwing the ball, there are lots to say in terms of systems, but here also I'm trying to understand maybe the perspective is, I know there are some arguments from really established scholars, counter arguments, like you can perceive this universe as a system, but how come can you pose that, the system should have or must have a designer? So all in all, even the evidence just supports, or whatever we look at the universe is connected, the keyword maybe, there's a connection. And there are a lot of, resources for us to see the connections. Like we have connection between the iron in our bloods and a star which recently exploded, or which exploded billions of years ago, just to have this iron in our bloods. So there are subtle and obvious connections in the universe, which just makes part and component and the whole, or part and the whole relationship obvious. And from systems perspective, as you just emphasize, there should be an objective. For systems discipline, definitely one of the key ingredients of a system is a goal. A system must have a goal. If there is no goal, then we cannot talk about a system, because all these particulars and all this whole part relationship just works or proceeds towards a common goal. And we know that, again, from a systems perspective, every subparts or every parts, particulars must have at least connection to some other parts. Otherwise, there would be a lot of redundancy. And we know that also systems domain would not allow any wasting resources. So maybe just to stay within the context, of course, when we look around, when we look at from this 33 windows, actually, as you say, maybe we are seeing from each window different parts of this system, the universe system as a whole, and maybe subsystems, like when we look at the spring, and subsystems when we look at a human being, and subsystems when we look at a single biological cell. They are all systems or subsystems, subsystems, which just serves a common goal. But again, it is a matter of believing or not believing. And here, Iman actually it's a matter of choice. And still there are people who does not believe at all. But at least here, Ustad Nursi is making reasoning to say that if you are reasonable, you should believe. So this is what I understand. That's his message. If you're reasonable, you should believe. That's maybe all I can say at this moment.
That's really a great help. But doesn't a system predispose? You mentioned a goal. A system is goal-driven, clearly, or goal-oriented. Doesn't a system predispose a mind that has set that goal and has set up the system in a manner that is conducive to arriving at that goal?
Absolutely. Actually, you are pointing to Ayat al-Kubra. I think we went over that. At the beginning of Ayat al-Kubra, seventh ray, Ustad Nursi discusses the caveats, the problems of the modern mind, maybe. So over there's some reasonings why people cannot, consider, or why people just find themselves in danger with respect to belief. I think one reason was, to see that everything azamet, azamet and kibriya. So because of the, how to translate kibriya? So this
the awesomeness and grandiosity.
Awesomeness, yes, grandiousness. So this is not something to be understood to the depth, and it requires being studied, and it's not very easy to submit that there should be a designer behind this system. I think you took me to the start of seventh ray, actually, with what you say.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the rejection of a designer would be through will, not through intellect.
Exactly.
Which system in humankind, in the domain of humankind, is without a system? What's the word? System maker, system designer? I don't know what the technical term you use is for the person who has conceived.
I think this design is a very good word. In the discipline, design is the key word. Yeah.
I wanted to avoid design actually because of the similarity with the ID movements, you know, intelligent design.
Right.
I mean, I think that has problems to an extent. Not that things aren't intelligently designed, of course they are, but I don't. I think when you make a connection with ID, the water gets muddied. But someone is in charge of that system. It has a modabber. It has someone who puts it in motion, who enacts it, who effects it, and no one denies that. No one can deny that. But when it comes to looking, as you said, in Ayatul Kubra, which basically, you know, there are 19 systems described in Ayatul Kubra, you know, and each one described more magnificently than the last. These people will say, well, these are natural systems, and so they beg the question, you know, which is you know, an informal fallacy. It's a fallacy. They assume that nature is the cause before even investigating it. So you can't win with people like that, and that is because they, as you said, Harun, their denial is based on will and not on inability to think.
Thank you, Harun Hocam, for your contribution. You know, when you said every system first has a goal, right? Here I see the sentence. For example, and if some genius has it in his head to build a palace, he first of all designs the foundations in a wise and regular fashion. And here it says, I guess, the goal part, right? Planning them so that they are appropriate for what is to be constructed upon them. You know, the goal. Inshallah, I think here we can also talk about the goal. After I read the next paragraph, what's the goal of the maker of the universe? And this goal is what drives the system maker build the system, right? Inshallah, I will read the next paragraph. Any more comments before I read the next paragraph, Mustafa Hocam?
No, I think it's fine from my side.
Okay. Similarly, and God's is the highest similitude, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, the peerless creator has also constructed a palace. Yes, the one who has 1,001 sacred names, names such as all glorious maker, all wise sovereign, and all just arbiter, has willed the creation of the palace, that is the universe, which forms the macrocosm. He laid the foundations of the palace, this vast tree of being, in 6 days, in accordance with the principles of his wisdom and the laws of his pre-eternal knowledge. He then divided it into layers and branches, both sublime and lowly, while detailing and describing it with the principles of divine decree and determining. Then he organized every group and layers of creatures with the utmost care and craftsmanship. Next, he decorated everything, each realm, each world, in an appropriate way, decking out the heavens with stars and the earth with flowers. He then manifested and made radiant his names within the framework of those universal laws and general principles. And then, in an act of special solicitude, he sent his names most merciful and all compassionate to the assistance of those individuals who were pained by the constraint of the universal laws. That is to say, as part of those universal and general principles, he has particular favors, particular expressions of succor, expressions of assistance, and particular ways of manifesting, so that everything may seek help from him individually and look to him at all times when in need. Then in every apartment, every level, every world, every realm of existence, in every individual and in every single created being, he opened up windows through which he shows himself. In other words, he makes known his existence and unity through the telephone that he has placed in every heart. Inshallah, here, and we can talk about the goal of the system maker and also other parts, and there are, I think, 5 or 6 parts, and inshallah we can talk about. Mustafa Hocam.
Yeah, this goal point is very critical. I think when Ustad is mentioning the example of palace, now this is the language they can understand, because now the nations, they see that if that country has a palace with a lot of functionality and showing the power, it is kind of also competition who's gonna build the highest building with like a lot of rooms in it and many decorations inside. So this becomes like a sign for right now the modern people to show off like this is the power. But Ustad is showing, look, the palace we are going to describe right now is much more magnificent, much more details in it. And the telephone you use in each room is not comparable with the telephone the creator put in each room, like we will give inshallah in this explanation. So if someone wants to build, let's say, a 30 floors with 1,000 rooms for a hotel, there is a purpose driven. I mean, there is a goal. They want to host people. So based on that, they will use maybe beds, they will use, let's say, a furniture, and they're gonna use some measurements. You know, they cannot make it too big, this room, so that, you know, it cannot fit maybe at 2,000 people. So there is a lot of like mathematical calculation. There is a lot of architectural points where it needs to be considered. So actually people are in this concept, like we live it daily. The modern society or the Westerners, they can understand this language. I think layer by layer, when we look at it, and the wisdom Allah is using on this palace and the laws He put it, and how He's dividing all these layers and branches is amazing. So He also, what one point is like this sublime and lowly, like there is an upper side where He's decorating, and there's also lower side like samawat and the ars. This is also like interesting with utmost care and the craftsman. So anything is flying around, like it has some certain calculation and needs, and these are also fulfilled within this palace. And there are also things which is down where all of their needs also is being provided. So these things also come to my mind when we talk about like a goal driven, and also the great example Ustad is using.
Mashallah, all the way from Samawat to each individual.
Yeah.
Inshallah, we can also talk about that specifically in an act of special solicitude, and He has particular favors, and particularly our Rabb, our Ilah, takes care of everyone individually too with His hadiyah. And also, I think we have a question to Colin Hocam. And when he mentioned, Baykar says, should a system administrator be in charge beside the designer? Colin Hocam mentioned a mudabbir. Colin Hocam, can you see the question?
Sorry, I was thinking of goal. I mean, I don't know. This is a question I think for Harun, because he is the systems guy. But I would imagine that the designer in this case is also the system administrator, ultimately anyway. So I'm presuming, I don't know technically, if we're talking about a human system or a humanly mediated system. Maybe Harun can just jump in and confirm that, or
yeah, I think Mustafa can address that. I think Baykar is trying to bring us to the names, to Esma Hüsna, rightfully.
Yes. But going back to the goal, which Mustafa was just talking about, I think we have to be careful when we are talking about Janab Allah, because Allah is not goal driven in the sense that we understand. What happens is that when his names manifest, the hikmah, the divine hikmah unfolds, and it unfolds for us in a way that that alludes to goals. There is a telos. There is an overall. We know that there is an overall telos anyway, which is to for God to self-communicate to us and to reveal Himself to us. Because He is kanz makhfi. He is a hidden treasure. He wants to be known perpetually, and therefore we can say that the goal of creation is for Allah to manifest to us so that we are able to know, love, and worship Him. But goals are for us because we are immersed in time and space, and of course, because there is time, there is also a goal. A goal is something that you haven't reached yet. You have a potential, and when that potentiality is actualized, and you move along this conveyor belt of action, and you arrive at some point at the realization of what you are looking for, or what you are working towards, and we call that a goal. Now, because Allah is not in time, we cannot say Allah works according to goals. Of course, also that would make Him dependent. And it would also suggest that Allah has potential that has not been actualized. These are all things that we can only discuss within the context of humankind, because we are in time and space, we are limited. So we have goals, but everything in creation reflects Allah's hikmah. And our understanding of the idea of the concept of goal is a direct outcome of that name, Al-Hakim, with other names, of course. And it shows that whatever Allah does has a meaning, has a reason. But we have to be a little bit careful when we say goal. Thank you.
I think, can we say, Colin Avi, like, in a company, the top person is setting some goals for the employees for their own perfection. But the employees, when they progress as a career development or learning, the progress is pleasing the system administrator or the top person. It's not like he needed,
yes.
but because of the names, as you said, Hakim and many other names, so it shows like a reflection. I mean, it's kind of a manifestation of those names when we progress. Maybe, for me, I need to be excel in certain discipline of the science, but someone else maybe has to be, excel, or he has a goal to be a great psychology person, or another person is like a teacher. But the name of Allah's Rabb, Rububiyyah, is that every step we need to take it, we reach to our own perfection. So
yes.
That perfection is like, should be based on a goal driven. I mean, it encourages us.
Yes.
But Allah doesn't need our goals, of course.
Yes.
So I think for that purpose, the creation is really needed to, I think, show the manifestation of some of the names of Allah with the goal. And that's I think, I don't know if I understood correctly from your statement.
Yeah, I think exactly that's what I was trying to say, and you've said it very eloquently and very economically as well. Allah sets the goals there through His hikmah. Yeah. And everything that we do is goal driven because we are just potentiality. And we move, and as you interesting thing that you said there is the perfection, point of perfection, this noqte kamal. We are always, in everything we do, we are always arriving, we are always moving towards, like I want to go now and make a cup of coffee. That's my goal. Everything that I do in the next 10 minutes is to realize that goal. And of course, this is how we are, because we are goal-driven beings, and then and also the universe has a goal. You know, Allah has put a goal for the universe. Why can these people not see that a goal or a system needs a mudabbir? You know, if that's the right word. I'm not sure that's the right name. It just came out of my mouth, but you know, there needs to be an administrator, as well as someone who conceives of the whole system, you know, and how that system is going to work. I find it preposterous that people can say the universe doesn't have any kind of purpose at all. And you have biologists, you know, studying for decades and then saying, you know, the more I look at the universe and how the universe functions, the more I realize that it has no purpose. You know, are these people, is this a joke? Or are these people serious? Can they really be serious? I don't understand how they can be serious.
I think with science, Colin, like they explain a lot of purposes. Oh, they say this part of leaves in a tree is for this purpose. Why it is in this size? Because of this. If it's too big, the tree is not going to carry it, will fall down. It doesn't have certain resistance. If there is a flow of wind comes and it will knock down. So they explain actually a lot of purposes, but they may not get to the point of like the higher purpose. And they can maybe attribute those little purposes that they see to the nature, right? I mean, if they don't want to accept it, and the question on the chat, like this system administrator should be with the designer. I mean, with our explanation and the examples, we want to understand Allah is very like maybe many deficiencies, the language we are using and the example we are using, because system administrators, we have it in the IT department. He has to meet with the designer, the architecture, the networking guy, and this and that, because system administrator in the worldly sense, he's not capable to go everywhere to check everything. He doesn't have kind of an overview of all dimension of the building, what is going on. So he has to appoint someone, and whoever is being appointed, he has to check, he has to do a lot of meetings to see the progress. But for Allah, you know, He's doing everything. He's the designer, he's the system administrator, he's the powerful, he's the architecture. So anything like from the names we can think about it, 1001 names, even more than that, Allah is doing all of this. He doesn't need to be like, you know, he's not depending on the time and the dimension. So, but with our small unit of measurements, we try to understand with the examples of Ustad is showing. That was maybe, you know, it could be an answer for this question.
MashaAllah. Also, adding to those, when we say, for example, Allah has, when we talk about His shu'unat, His functions, we use the word sacred, right? Like when we say pleasure, like divine pleasure, it's sacred pleasure, not like the pleasure that we get. It's sacred, that we cannot explain.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Love. And when we talk about setting a goal, and there's a goal, there's a purpose in the creation for each being, right? For each atom, for each star, for each human being, especially, there's a goal, there's a purpose that Allah Ta'ala has put. And since also Allah Ta'ala controls, like He has all-encompassing will, knowledge, and power, He actually set this purpose and goal. And I think we can use it like with the word, with the sacred, right? Even if, like, for example, the purpose, the goal, Allah has said in Surah Al-Ibrahim, Allah Ta'ala says, in takfuru antum wa man fil ard, if you disobey Allah, if you disbelieve in Allah, you and all the people on earth is free of need of you, and He is always praised one. He is free of need. So that's why, from that point of view, like if a system administrator, he sets a goal and he works really hard to attain, like to get to that purpose. And if people like don't listen to him, like he gets angry. But Allah is not like that. Our Rabb is not like that. If yani, he has put a goal and purpose, but sacred, like he has the sacred.
Yeah, I think it's interesting and it's important that you brought that out. You know, just to clarify that, you know, Allah doesn't need to fulfill any goal for himself. And, you know, particularly when we understand that Allah is above time and space, or outside of time and space, or he transcends time and space, then clearly he doesn't work towards goals. But colloquially, you know, because our language, as you said, is limited, it's okay to talk about goals and purposes for Allah, as long as, you know, with the caveat that we are careful and that we realize that, you know, I think someone in the chat made a distinction between goal and purpose. You know, Allah's creation is purposeful. Even we still have to be careful, you know, because purposes can be worked towards as well. But the fact is, those who are asking this question, how long do we have to say that God controls everything? It becomes increasingly a supercilious, meaningless, silly, juvenile question, because you just have to look at the creation to see purpose and goal in action. And if there is a purpose in absolutely every atom in existence, to then turn around and say that the cosmos as a whole doesn't have a meaning or a purpose, it's very disingenuous. You know, they want to accept local purpose, but not universal purpose, because that brings responsibility. So just as they get, you know, to the with each of the juz, you know, the juziyat, the ajza, they can say, yes, you know, nature does this, this, but the whole thing, no, that doesn't have a purpose. Because, you know, if you see the universe as one unit, then it demands a response. Who is the administrator of that one single unit of creation? This is why they say, well, the universe as a whole doesn't have any purpose. You know, it is a lie. And it is because they do not want to take on the responsibility of belief. It's easier to deny for them. But we make no mistakes. It's not because it's in any way illogical or unreasonable or difficult to understand. It's not because they are intellectually, you know, paralyzed. You know, it's not something mysterious. It's not something that cannot be logicked out. You know, cannot be rationalized. It's very, even though it's non-rational, it's very reasonable. It's very, very difficult to reject. It's so easy. Ustad says on many occasions, it's much easier to believe in one creator creating billions of things, you know, by himself, than it is to accept billions of things creating themselves. The impossibilities involved in that second option are infinite. So we should never make the mistake of thinking that, you know, they are rejecting the idea of the creator because it is intellectually untenable. That's not the case.
Thank you, Cornel Hocam. I don't know if my clock is correct, but I guess we have like 5 minutes left. I couldn't understand how, you know, it's 55 minutes, it's been 55 minutes. This is, mashallah, we have a lot to talk, but inshallah, yani, I believe we can talk about the last part, yani, next week, inshallah. I wanted to talk about, you know, many other aspects. Mustafa Hocam, any comments so far?
This part is also when Allah is decorating this palace like with stars and the flowers. This has also a lot of like purposes. I mean, in our daily life, when we want to buy like a flowers for someone, or if you want to decorate your kid's room with certain lights. So, I mean, I just want to, say like a few other examples Ustad is giving here. So the universe is full of purposes Allah is putting. And even if we miss one, we can see others. So we may not find a reason why we didn't believe in Allah, because he's showing us from all angles, like why he created this universe, what he wants from us. He wants to be known. He has a lot of treasures. These treasures are his names. So from these, I think we need to dig more and more. Yeah, as you said, the time flies. I mean, we just touched a little bit to the topic, and it went all the way almost 9 right now. Yeah, I think that was the flowers and the stars that catch my attention. So maybe in the following week we can talk about more about the details of the palace.
That's also another point, right? Like, for example, if you prepare for your newborn baby, you decorate the house, you buy flowers and stuff, and you decorate the house. And that's also, we see the other goal of the universe, the creation of the universe. The one who made the universe made it so to make himself loved too, and he shows his love with the flowers and in earth. He could have given us, all the vegetables and fruits without flowers. First gives us flowers, then the food, right? Inshallah. And also when we look at the heavens, like all the galaxies, and we see that the formation of different gas and stars, better, yani. They're like different colors, right? Red, blue, yellow, yani, in the universe, just like the flowers.
Yeah.
Colin Hocam, any comment on this?
No, I'm just very, very glad that you brought our attention to the question, and that Mustafa started things off, because it's a question really that that particular question at the beginning of the treatise, I always usually gloss over it and go straight into just to reading, so that it's really eye-opener, and there are lots of things that follow on from that, and we've discussed them, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, next week we can talk about this beauty in the universe, and also Allah's special particular favors for each individual, inshallah, and then we can continue on the first window.
Are we going to do all 33? I don't think so.
We're going to do it like for 4 weeks, inshallah, and then we'll another topic.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Thank you for Colin Hocam, Mustafa Hocam, Harun Hocam, and everyone.
Thank you.
Inshallah, see you next week. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.